Hello, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilich, begashmis und beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. A freilich and schchedish, today's Aleph Tammuz. Sunday will the Mr. Hashem be Gimmel Tammuz, the Yom Elul of the Rebbe, 31 years ago. So, for us, it's a very serious moment of introspection. It's a moment of great heights, spiritual heights that can be reached. And we have to focus on the Rebbe and, as usual, the lesson of the Parshas HaShavua. Before we begin, let's get stucker, as we did since the beginning of the war. Mashiach should come now. We're going to say a prayer which is going to be the subject of today's talk, and that is the last bracha of Shemoneh Esrei, the most important bracha, which we say that if we have shalom, if we have peace, that is the main word. That's what we're all looking for, peace. So we have the bracha of Sim Shalom Teva Bracha Chaim Chem V'Chesed Racham Aleinu Al Kol Yisrael Amecho, and then we say the words that the Alter Rebbe brings in Tanya chapter 32, Barucheinu Avinu Kulanu Ke'echad, and the Alter Rebbe says, bless us, Father, together. But he says that when we are Kulanu Ke'echad, when together, that triggers, that elicits the blessings. So the greatest vehicle for blessings is unity. And then we say, Baruch Atah Hashem, blessed are you Hashem, HaMevarech es Amoi Yisrael Bashalem. You bless your people Israel with peace. Because if we have the blessing of peace, we have everything. Now, before I begin, I just want to say, last week, we were in the middle of the war with Iran. Now it's called the 12-day war, and it's officially over, and there's a ceasefire. I want to say something, I don't know if it's obvious or it's not obvious, but the truth is, for a believer who reads the Haggadah, and we all know the section, V'hi Sha'amda, and we say, B'chol doir v'doir, oim dim aleinu l'chaliseinu. There's always going to be a Jamajan, and a Hitler Yimach Shemoy, and a Stalin Yimach Shemoy, and a Spanish Inquisition, and the Crusades, and the Churban Beis Hamikdash, and Nebuchadnezzar, and they all come to an end, and we know that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Matzileinu Miyadam. So that's survival guaranteed, and not only survival guaranteed, not thriving guaranteed. Because that's what makes us, we are different. But I'll tell you the truth, I must confess, what scares me more is the disunity, the Pirid Alvavis. And many people brought this out before the October 7th war. What happened? And Chas v'sholem, we're not bringing justifications for Hashem's actions. As is well known, the word from the Friedrich Rebbe, we don't always have to justify Hashem. He's going to have to do that himself. But nevertheless, we're given certain instructions, as we say in davening. There's nothing as precious, there's nothing as cherished by Hashem as seeing the unity of Yidden together by themselves. Nothing to do with the other nations. What was going on in Eretz Yisrael before October 7th with the protests was actually very highly disturbing and scary. To think that the Churban Beis Hamikdash was because of Kamsa Bar Kamsa, which is one person. Imagine the damage which is being done through Pirid Alvavis, Hashem. So even during the war, the whole time, there was the other side. I don't want to label anybody with any groups, but let's call it certain parties that were going on. We're losing the war. Don't go into Rafah. Don't go into this. Don't start a war with Iran. Bibi's in it only for his own power. Whatever it is, shtusam v'avolim. But my point is, there was this divisiveness, this bitter divisiveness, and this sinner that was still going on. And the world knows about it. And that's what scares me, that Baruch Hashem, We have to be singing Hoydel Hashem Ki Tov Ki Le'olam Chazdei for the miracles that happened just now in Eretz Yisrael. But my friend, I've got news for you. It's not a chidush, sof kol sof, that we won, because that's guaranteed. As I said before, Hakadosh Baruch Hu matzilenu miyadam every single time. But the question is, how does that heal the rift between ourselves? What are we going to do with our own Avas Yisrael, Avas Achim, etc.? So this I'm saying at the outset, which I think has to be the most important resolution by each and every single one of us, because there is nothing more important than Avas Yisrael. And therefore we're going to speak of the subject today, which already I've spoken other Parshas Korach previous years. If you look it up, we spoke about peace once, twice. This year we're going to do it again, and each time there's a slight difference of emphasis, and we see the beauty of it. And if it inspires one person to improve in his Avos Yisrael, if my Avos Yisrael tomorrow will be better than it is today, it was a huge accomplishment. Anyway, so we know this week's parsha. We have this person called Korach, and everyone knows that Korach represents the stereotype of a Baal Machlekes. He's argumentative, he's confrontational, and he's jealous. And he's making a so-called revolution to stand up for the masses. As we see in many of these stories, that it's not about something altruistic, he's in it for himself. And I'm not going to tell you the basic story, but there's a pasuk right away in Kapitel Tezayin, pasuk Yud Beis, where Rashi, where the pasuk says that Moshe Rabbeinu, Vayishlach Moshe likrei l'dosan v'la'aviram. After the sides are drawn, the lines are drawn, and we see those that are having an argument. The pasuk says that Moshe sent forth to summon Dosan v'aviram, bnei Eliyav, vayemeru lo na'aleh, and they said, excuse me, we shall not go up. And Rashi says over here, Mikan, from here we see, she'ein machzikim b'machlekes. We do not keep up a dispute. Shehoya Moshe mechazer achreim. Moshe went after them. He sought them out. Lashlimam, to restore harmony with them. B'divrei shalom, with words of peace. So even though he didn't in the end end up saying these words of peace, but he sent the messenger that they should come forth, and he tried to make a dialogue. Okay. And from here we learn, Ein machzikim b'machlekes. Now it's very interesting, in Kapitel Tezayin, Pasuk Chafei, later, there's another very, very interesting Pasuk, and the Pasuk says over there, after the Eibishter tells Moshe that he should tell the people that are around the camp of Dosan v'aviram that they should trug zich up, they should move aside, because of what's going to happen. So the pasuk says, "Vayokom Moshe." Moshe stood up, vayelech el Dosan v'aviram, and he went to Dosan v'aviram. Vayelech achrav ziknei Yisrael, and all the elders of Israel went after Moshe, together with him. Rashi over here says, "Vayokom Moshe," and Moshe stood up. Kisover, he was under the impression sheyisol leponim, that they would treat him graciously. V'lo, but they did not do so. Concerning Dosan v'aviram. And then the next pasuk right afterwards says, "Vayidaber el ha'eda," Moshe spoke to the congregation. What happened with Dosan v'aviram over here? And he didn't speak to them? Now, it's very interesting that the Gemara in Sanhedrin, on this verse, where it says, "Vayokom Moshe vayelech el Dosan v'aviram," on this verse, the Gemara says, Mikan shein machzikim b'machlekes. From here you learn out that we do not continue a machlekes. So the Klotz Kasha is obviously, why does Rashi say Dafka over there, when Moshe sent people to go speak terms of endearment with them, terms of peace, And why does the Gemara learn out from here? Why would Rashi learn it out from a different place, even though the Gemara clearly says it over here? Mikan shein machzikim machlekes. Now the truth is, there's a medrash that is according to Rashi. Rashi chooses to go according to the medrash, not according to the Gemara. But we have to understand it. So there's a sikha of the Rebbe in Chelik Chafei. I'm going to take the foundation of what I'm saying comes from that sikha, even though the Rebbe wants to bring out one point, the lesson is going to be the same, but it has a different emphasis, and I find it very ironic that it comes out from the Rebbe's sikha, even though he doesn't learn from the pasuk Vayokom Mikan Shein Machzikim Machlekes, but in actuality that's just a technical detail. But what we see in this Vayokom Moshe is a whole new level, qualitatively speaking, of Avas Yisrael and making Reidiv Shalom, pursuing peace. So let's first talk about Yesh B'zeh Ma'ashem B'zeh V'yesh B'zeh Ma'ashem B'zeh. What's going on over here in the Psukim? So in the first pasuk where it says that he called Dasam Aviram, you could say that Rashi learns over there Mikan Shein Machzikim Machlekes, according to the way the Rebbe explains it, because as soon as Moshe has a chance to try to make peace, he makes peace. That's why Rashi learns Mikan Shein Machzikim Machlekes, because that's straight away at the beginning. Moshe sees that there's a dispute, even though these people are his enemy, and the lines are drawn, and they have zero respect, which is a very painful thing, and they're making a mutiny, a rebellion against Moshe Rabbeinu. Nevertheless, he's coming forth and stretching out his hand, so to speak, and saying, let's be friends. So there's two reasons why Mikan, you could say Ulai, why Mikan Shein Machzikim Machlekes. Number one is the idea of nip it in the bud. Sometimes when you nip it in the bud, it prevents it from getting worse. And it represents an attitude where imagine you're a person, I'm talking to you right now, and you know that someone's angry at you. A person who's a refined person, he will not sleep peacefully knowing that there's another person that has grievances against him. He won't be able to even sleep one night. So it's the same thing over here. The immediacy of the fact that Moshe goes out and makes a gesture for peace, Mikan Shein Machzikim Machlekes. Number one, nip it in the bud, that represents more how the concept of division and separation and hatred and disharmony represents something which is against the totality of Moshe. It's totally against Moshe. And second of all, the concept of initiative. We know how it is so many times, as we know in the story of Aaron, that he went to each side and says, they're so sorry, they want to make up. In other words, it's about the first move. Mikan Shein Machzikim Machlekes. Because the most difficult thing is to make the first move. To be the one to say first, I'm sorry. To be the one to say, stick out your hand and say, let's make up. So therefore, Rashi, according to Pshuta Shamikra, is learning Mikan Shein Machzikim Machlekes from the first thing. But let's take another lesson. Vayokom Moshe Mikan Shein Machzikim Machlekes. There's another case where you tried this thing and that thing and the other thing, and the opposition is obstinate and stubborn and not budging one iota and zero remorse, and even worse and more than that, the verdict has been said. In the case over here, where the pasuk says Vayokom Moshe, Hashem already said, over. He passed the verdict. And he sent Moshe to tell the rest of the Eden to separate themselves. So you think, forget it. One last ditch and effort. Zog the Gemara, what the Rebbe says in the Sikha, Mikan, even though the Rebbe learns Mikan, Rashi going on the first pasuk, Mikan Shem Machzikim Machlokes, because Moshe himself over here went towards Dasam Aviram. It takes a very strong person who has true humility to do some sort of gesture or motion, even though you know that they can't stand you, but to go straight up to them to try to make a change in their feelings. And this is what Rashi says over here, Sheyisul Eponim, he wanted to bring out that they should have respect. Now, according to the Pashto Pshat, what does it mean? What was this move? So I want to explain why, according to the Rebbe, this Vayokom Moshe is so profound. The issue is like this. Once the Eibishter sent, this is what the Rebbe addresses in the Sikha. Once the Eibishter sent Moshe on the Shlichus, that he should go tell the Yidden that they should separate themselves from Dasam Aviram, how could Moshe do anything else? Going to speak to Dasam Aviram at the time when he already had a clear instruction mission from Hashem is deviating from the mission. He has no permission to deviate. Moshe doesn't do anything which is the opposite of Hashem's will. He's totally nullified to Hashem. Hashem gave him a mission. Go straight to that mission and stay focused on that mission. Over here we see the genius of Avos Yisrael, of Moshe. He can't let go. He can't abandon anyone, even someone who is his enemy, even someone who's fostering division, even someone who the Eibishter already said that they're going to be punished. He can't let go. He can't give up. It's another Yid. We can't give up on any Yid, no matter what the circumstances is. Mikan Shem Machzikim Machlokes. So what's the pshat? The pshat is Vayokom Moshe. Moshe figured out a new method, one last thing that might touch them to change. It's not something different. He didn't actually do anything that could be considered that he did something different than what the mission was that Hashem told him. Because the mission that Hashem told him was to just go speak to the congregation. And therefore the pasuk says, after Vayokom, immediately the pasuk says, Vaydaber Le'eda. He spoke to the congregation. But he figured out a way, Vayokom, that Rebbe learns, Moshe elevated himself, an image of royalty, an image of regal. And that's why Vayelech Achrav Ziknei Yisrael, as Rashi says, Moshe was thinking that if he's going to come towards the Yidden, the Eidah, and Dasam Avidim is going to see that image of the whole entourage, which would be very impressive, and they'll see how the Ziknei Yisrael are nullified to Moshe. So then that would stir in them the idea of, wow, look how many choshev people, all the Chachamim, all the Sanhedrin, all the Bnei Torah, all the Gedolei Adar are really on the side of Moshe. Look at this. Look at this royal procession of Moshe walking with the Ziknei Yisrael. So Vayokom Moshe, which is the question B'chlal, why should the pasuk say Vayokom Moshe? It should say Vayelech. Does it usually say, when you went on a trip or you walked out of the house, does it say you stood up? It's a very strange expression. He stood up. Why is the Gate to know that he stood up? According to Rashi, according to the Rebbe, what does it mean he stood up? He upgraded. He elevated himself. The Rebbe brings from what it says by when Avram bought the stay Ephraim, Vayokom Tkuma Eloi, that the field became elevated, became more precious, because now it belonged to Avram Avinu. So the field had an upgrade. Moshe Rabbeinu in himself, there's many facets to a leader. You could put on your crown and your robes with your scepter, and there's the way you're walking around like that with the full image. And there's sometimes when you're not wearing the crown. I'm just saying. So the Rebbe learns pshat over here, Vayokom Moshe put on the crown, so to speak, figuratively speaking. But he didn't actually speak one word to Das Vavidim, and therefore it's not a deviation from the Shlichus. But what's the lesson? Look at Moshe Rabbeinu, that he came up with such a scheme, in a good way, a chap, such genius. He figured out a way to still do the Shlichus of what the Eibishter wants from him, and at the very same time, to hang on, to try to hang on, to do something that's still going to rescue them. When they'll see that image of Moshe Rabbeinu coming to them with the whole entourage, they'll have respect. Now, B'derech Drush, I would like to say that over here, we're also talking about, you could say that, there's an expression, the Reichkeit von Chassidus, the Reichkeit von Yiddishkeit. We say, L'stakola b'kora de malka. Let's say we're dealing with a person, and it's very, very hard to touch him. We try every different method. So there is a method where go higher. Now, in this case, the go higher was that they should respect Moshe Rabbeinu, which means they would change their ways. Before they were disrespectful, but now they would see that entourage, that image of Moshe in his royal guise, with all the Ziknei Yisrael, that would bring out the respect in them towards Moshe, and therefore that would mean they would do tshuva, and therefore they would be saved. But let's take it in a different context. Let's take it in general. This is the way I'm taking it. I'm not a person who's an authority, a figure of authority. So we're going to say gei hecher. Sometimes we're scared. We give baby food. We give a product which is diminished. We're addressing the lowest common denominator. Why? And sometimes it's true. Sometimes it's that method. Well, we have to do that. But right now, based on this Vayokom word, go higher. That's what I'm saying, Vayokom. In other words, show them depth. Show them profundity. Show them beauty. Show them authenticity. And that, in the end, is what's truly going to affect them. I just recently heard a story from the Rebbe that I never heard before. That the Rebbe was talking about Eretz Yisrael, and Eretz Yisrael is the Holy Land. And the Rebbe says that everyone knows that the Eretz Yisrael is the Holy Land. And Eretz Yisrael has to be in every country, in every language, and every people understand it and recognize that's what Eretz Yisrael is about. And he said a story. He said it took him a minute and a half. And the Rebbe said there was a senator that went to Eretz Yisrael. So the people in Eretz Yisrael, the dignitaries, the senator of the United States went to Eretz Yisrael, and they showed him, the Weizmann Museum, the Tel Aviv University, and Tel Aviv, this modern laboratory, and that university, and things like that. Anyways, he came back from Eretz Yisrael, and they asked him what do you say about Eretz Yisrael, and he says, I don't see anything special about Eretz Yisrael. Anyways, he went back a second time. This time they sat him in Yerushalayim, and in different neighborhoods, Bnei Brak, Meir Shorim, and the Rebbe says he saw the beggars, the people that are collecting money during davening, and he saw the broken benches. I forgot the Lashon Yiddish, what the Rebbe said. Anyways, this time he came back from Eretz Yisrael. And what did he say about Eretz Yisrael? He didn't stop raving about, wow, Israel's a holy land. It's special. When you go to Yerushalayim, and you go to a shul in Yerushalayim, and you see a Yid in Eretz Yisrael, who's all about spirituality, then you see something different. And the Rebbe ended off the story by saying, this time he came back and he started raving about Eretz Yisrael, that it's the Holy Land, and from that, Israel got a couple of fighter jets. This senator signed off on some fighter jets. So that's what I mean when I say gei hecher. We're so worried about sometimes how something's going to affect the recipient that we choose to go lower. Maybe we have to go higher. Vayokom. But obviously, your love has to always be projected and has to always come through. So anyways, The Rebbe said by the first Farbrengen that he accepted in the series of Yitzhvat, I said this many times, Adi alle was of Mashayches zum Rebbe sollen stehen be'achdus. All those that have a connection to the Rebbe should be standing be'achdus. And I believe that this is the main talk, dialogue, discussion that we should be having. Avos Yisrael, machshavtem she Yisrael, kodma l'chol dover. And if we will have Avos Yisrael, like the Rebbe said, I don't know how many times, that if we will go with Avas Chinam, so the cause of the exile, which we say is Sinas Chinam, will become nullified. So l'chaim, in honor of Gimmel Tammuz this year, and our making the achonis of increasing in Avos Yisrael, and learning from the both sides of Ein Machzikim Machlekes, be the one who makes the first move, be the one who has the initiative, but also be the one that never gives up again and again. Yes, b'zeh ma'asheim b'zeh. From both places where we learn out Ein Machzikim Machlekes, and do that, and the merit of our Avos Yisrael, the Golus will come to an end right now. And in Mir Hashem u'Be'ezim Yisbarich, this Gimmel Tammuz will see Takav and Niske Zenzich and Rebbe do lemata in Agov or lemata me'asar tvachim for hu yigalenu. Posting from my home, Be'ezim Yisbarich, your man in Melbourne.